Hey guys, this is Michaela, and today I want to show you how to use Soundation. It's a great tool for composing audio for your games or your videos or whatever you might want to use it for. And they do have a free account, which honestly works really well. I highly recommend just going with the free account. Really the only reason to get a paid account is there's some specific features that can be used, but for most people, a free account's going to be fine. So the first thing I want to say is make sure that you do have an account and that you are logged in before you hit the little launch the studio button. And the reason why is because if you're not logged in and you go work in the studio and create music and all that kind of stuff, and then you're like, okay, let me go save, it's going to pop up and be like, you're not logged in, you can't save. And it doesn't really let you go back after that, so you have to start all over again. I have done that millions of times. So I highly recommend making sure you're logged in. I am logged in, happy to see. So, we're going to launch the studio and check out how Soundation works. Now there's basically three ways that you can create music in Soundation. One of them is to use pre-recorded audio files. If you have a paid account, you can use files from your computer. But if you just have a free account, you can only use the ones that Soundation already has, which we're going to go into first. But before that, I want to mention the other two ways that you can create music in Soundation. One of them is by using MIDI files. You can either use MIDI files that you have found on the web and downloaded to your computer, or you can use the MIDI files that Soundation already has. And the third way is by actually composing music yourself, which works remarkably well, and that's my favorite. But we're going to go into the first one first. Alright, so if I want to just use some pre-recorded music, I'm going to use the stuff that they have here in their library. That's everything except for this MIDI section. And that's going to give me options for pre-recorded sounds. Now you'll notice that on this one in particular, it gives me options of 125 or 130. What does that mean? Well, look, there's this 125 down here. That's the tempo. And if I double click on that, I can change it. I'm going to change it to 130 because that's the only other one that I know it goes to. And you saw everything kind of changed and up in here. If I double click again, I'm going to put it back to 125 because that's the default and that's what it looks like. So yeah, since we're already in 125, I'll pick something in the 125 section. And I'm like, oh look, Bass Cupid, that sounds like a fun one. So I can either hit this little button down here to preview it, or I can just double click. So that works pretty well. So I'm going to go and click and drag it over to one of the gray ones. Now, all the gray channels can be used for .wav files. The blue is only for MIDI files. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. So let's say I want a few other options. Let's do this one, and let's give it a snare. I don't know why. No idea what this is going to sound like, but let's just hit play and see what it sounds like. So that worked pretty well. Alright, so let's say, well, oh no, this is really long and these are both really short. I want them to all be the same length, or I want this to keep going. Well, this little triangle up here on the top, I can use that to pull it out and make it as long as I want to. It repeats and repeats and repeats as many times as I choose. And then let's say, oh no, actually, you know what? I want this one to be shorter. Well, this little triangle at the bottom, I can make it shorter. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it all the same, and then we're going to hit play again. So that's basically how that works. So I'm going to take a minute real quick and show you how to save, because that is extremely important. So you can do File, Save As, and as you can see, I have a lot of options here for various things that I have done. I'm going to go ahead and leave this as Untitled Song. And there we go. So it says it was saved successfully. So assuming that I was all done and I didn't want to do any more work on it, now I can go and export it either as an SMG or as a .wav. .wav is usually what I do. It says, oh look, it's ready to be saved. And we pull that down and it automatically labels it as mixed down, but you can do whatever you want. We're going to call it, that's what we're going to call it, as test 2 because I did a test earlier. Alright, so now I have exported it. If I went back into my music files, I would see that it's already there. And that's basically how that works. Alright, now we're going to get rid of this. I'm going to just click on those and delete those channels using the delete key on my keyboard. But then I'm like, oh wait, no, I still wanted one. Well, I could hit this little plus button down here, and look, there's a gray channel again. But I don't want any of those. What I do want is a few more blue channels for what I'm about to do. So I'm going to hit this little plus with the music icon next to it. And oh look, I have 4. Yay. We'll get to the soundboard in a minute. Alright, so we're all done with these pre-made ones here. What we do want to look now is at the pre-made MIDIs, because that's the second way that we can make music here. So Soundation has these already put together MIDIs. Like I said, you can go get some off the internet as well. I have done both for various reasons. But we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to bring over all 4 of these that are called 4 chords. The reason they have a similar name together, you can see that a lot of them do that, is because they're telling you, hey, guess what? These guys are supposed to go together. They sound good together. So this particular one actually happens to be Don't Stop Believing. So yeah. So the thing about MIDI files, right, we couldn't preview, if I double click over here, it doesn't do anything. I can't preview it because a MIDI file doesn't mean anything until you assign an instrument to it. So Soundation automatically gives it an instrument that it likes to call simple. Oops. And if you click on an instrument like I just did, you get a little soundboard and you can play around with it and kind of do whatever you want to with it. But let's just listen to it with the way that simple sounds normally. So that's how that works. And like I said, there's that simple version. Then there's all these different options you have for types of instruments that you can use, and most of them have a soundboard like the other one did, where you can make some decisions. If you're really into tweaking with soundboard and stuff like that, there's a lot of options there. You can definitely use the Wub Machine if you're wanting to do any dubstep. It helps a lot. What I use most of the time, though, is SAM1 and GM2, because those are the 2 that really let you do legit instruments. So SAM1, as you can see, it's got the soundboard, and then you've got a few options here. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh, wow, there's so many. And then I went over and I looked over at GM2, and I was like, oh, wait, there's a ton. Look, these are all just piano, and if I drop down, look at how many categories we have. We've got so many options for instruments, and like each one has a bunch of different ones. It's just very helpful to have that many options, especially if you're doing something where you want to have a lot of depth and sound to it. It's nice to have a full orchestra at your fingertips. So yeah, GM2 is most of what I use. So let's go in and let's give it some instruments and see what it sounds like with a few others. And I'm just going to pick a few without paying a whole lot of attention to what it is that I'm picking. And so it may not sound extremely good when it comes out, but the thing is you can tweak and tweak and tweak until you find something that you really, really just love. It's just nice to have that kind of functionality where you can kind of pick what you want to do with it. So let's play that and hear what it sounds like. So yeah, that works pretty well. And again, you've got a lot of options of what you can do with that. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. Oh yeah, as you can see, this is also volume options, which is nice to have. You can mute channels and things like that. There's just a lot of different things that you can do. Now I'm going to show you the third thing you can do, which is to just compose music from scratch. So in order to do that, see it says double click to create note clip. We're going to go ahead and double click. And it comes up with this, oh look, this pretty little piano here that we've got here. If we click on the notes, it previews what they sound like. So even if you're not familiar with piano, you can kind of figure out what you're doing. So let's give it a few notes. To create a note, you just double click at a square. Or the other thing is I can double click anywhere. I don't have to double click at a square. Actually kind of do have it. I can double click anywhere. It'll put it in a square automatically. But see, I can click on it. I can move it wherever I want. It doesn't have to be in a square. So if I want something to be like half a note away, then that works really well too. I can drag it around and put it wherever I want to. If I want to move several at once, I just click and drag and move things around just like so. Let's give it a few more. And then let's say, oh, I want this one to be really long though. Well, I just select it and then I pull it and it gets long. And that's pretty much how that works. So, and then we hit this little play button and that shows us how how it sounds. You'll notice that when we did that, this little thing came on and we got this little line up here. That's because it automatically turned the loop on. You have to pay attention to that because it'll do it when you're not expecting it to. Anyway, but so that means it's going to play over and over again. If I say, well, no, I don't want it to play over and over again. I want it to keep going after this part. Well, then you just click on that and then hit play down here, and it'll keep going. And that gets in a lot of really handy when you're trying to mess with something in the middle of a big string of stuff, because it's just a lot easier to not have it loop every time. So you have to go tell it, I don't want it to loop anymore. So again, with this, if I want it to repeat, I can do that. If I want to make it longer so I can add more notes in here, I can do that. If I want to make it shorter, I don't want those ones at the beginning, I can do that. There's just a lot of options and functionality with that. So yeah, that's pretty much how that works. So now, since we're done with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up, I don't want to save that because I don't really care about it, but I'm going to pull up something that I've done previously. Not that one. I'm going to pull up something that I've done previously so you can kind of get a sense of what it can look like when you've got everything all together. Let's do that one. So as you can see, I've got all these different parts together. Down at the bottom, I've got some things that I was playing with earlier, but I'm not using anymore. And we can come back and we can hit play. And it gets buggy every now and then. So as you can see, you can make some stuff sound pretty impressive and pretty good. There's just so much that you can do with this. It's extremely helpful. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck!